Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Can You Hear Me podcast. I'm Rob Johnson, president of Rob Johnson Communications.
And I'm Eileen Rochford, CEO of the marketing and strategy firm, the Harbinger Group. For founders of companies, getting to the finish line of a merger or acquisition is a dream of a lifetime. But how important is it to maintain trust and alignment when others are taking over? That is one of the topics we will be discussing today with James Rose. He is the CEO of Inflectiv Group, a Great Britain, based firm that backs independent marketing and communications firms through minority investments. James, thank you for joining us on Can You Hear Me today? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Pleasure to be on. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Eileen.
It's great to have
Good
you,
to be
James.
here.
Now, before we get into our topic today, why don't you give our listeners a little bit about your background, your origin story, as it were?
Sure, yeah, quite a varied background, but I'll try and summarize it in a succinct manner. I'd say for the past 20 years, I've been scaling SMEs, either as a founder or a commercial leader. I left university and spent the first 7 years building a group of companies in Eastern Europe. One was a furniture retailer servicing expat property investors, and then we got into property development and real estate. And that was straight into the financial crisis, which was great timing for any young startup trying to make it in as an entrepreneur. And so from there, I moved into the media and tech world. Spent a lot of time as a commercial leader, helping to scale other people's businesses. 7 years of which was a video agency where we raised private equity and grew from kind of 8 people to sort of 70 plus over a 7 year period. And that journey really led me to what we're doing today at Inflectiv in terms of building a group through minority structures as opposed to a traditional kind of private equity model, which is very much dependent on high amounts of capital and significant resources. So quite a varied 20-year background, but they say the path kind of leads you to where you are. When you look backwards in the rearview mirror, you kind of see there was lots of learnings along the way that I've taken forward. So yeah, that's been my short version of my origin story.
Very interesting path. Pretty unique, I would think. Have you ever met anyone like you who took a similar path? I'm curious.
It's funny because when you mentioned the Bulgaria thing, they're like, "Oh my God, that is so different to what you're doing now." Like, how did that happen? And
Yeah.
it leads on into a whole different conversation. But it was just timing, to be honest. At that time, there was significant investment in the region, and I was just fascinated by how a market like that was evolving so quickly. And so yeah, but very different than marketing agencies for sure.
That's for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure. Well, okay. So here in Can You Hear Me, we talk about how to use communications effectively. It's for, leaders who want to get really serious about using communications to take their organizations to the next level, I think is the best way to describe it. So with that backdrop, would you please tell us, James, a little bit more about specifically your current venture where you've landed and what you're
Yeah.
doing with Inflectiv Group. And I'd really love for you to talk to our listeners about what it is that you do really, really well at Inflectiv Group
Yeah.
and like kind of who you do it with. A little bit about that would be
Yeah.
interesting too.
Yeah, absolutely. So the marketing landscape is changing quite rapidly. There's been a lot of traditional holding companies in the public markets that have grown through acquisition, 100% share acquisitions, and built real shareholder value over the past 20 years. But most recently, that model has started to change. Shareholder value has been reducing, and founders that have sold to larger groups have actually found that integrating culture and operations can not necessarily be a great outcome for them. And so when I looked at that dynamic, I could see that there's probably a different way of doing things, but achieving the same level of scale. And so the way we approach that is we come in as a minority shareholder, which means that the founders of these agencies continue to be in charge of their own destiny, but they have the support of a bigger group. And what that enables us to do is actually leverage the group ecosystem for cross sells, upsells, support, centralized finance. but not impact all of the aspects that made those agencies great in the first place. Because we're specifically focused on agencies that have been trading for at least 10 years. So they don't want an investment partner coming in and trying to change the culture or the operations, but they do want to increase shareholder value, provide legacy for their teams, and ultimately exit that business on the terms that are right for them. And so we like to look at it as like a founder-friendly group where we genuinely put the founders first on all the decisions around the terms and the agreements. And so, yeah, it's an exciting time in the market. There's lots of emergence of these types of collectives. And I think that's a signal that the market is demanding a new wave of groups within this space. Yeah, so in terms of what we bring, we bring minority capital. We have a centralized finance function. We have a non-exec board that supports these agencies, and we very much grow through acquisitions. So our strategy is to acquire a minority position in each agency and then help them acquire bolt-on acquisitions as well, which is a compounding effect for everybody involved. And obviously, by being part of a group, they have the leverage to be able to do that, whereas they may not be able to if they were fully independent to begin with.
Yeah, very good. Interesting.
That's really fascinating. So, James, I would think that maintaining culture would be top of mind for many founders when they're close to making an exit. How do you integrate the companies without losing culture, or is that something you even focus on?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, we purposely don't integrate. So all of the agencies have their own office locations, they have their own company policies, they have their own management teams. Um, and they're all quite different, to be honest, in terms of you walked into those offices, you wouldn't necessarily say they were all part of the same group because they are run differently and they're different personalities. And so we've purposely not impacted the culture. But we've tried to instill a shared set of beliefs. At the group level, we have to have certain kind of policies and ways that we work and shared ethos, but we don't want to get involved in the day-to-day decisions around these agencies. So the culture is everything, especially in the marketing world, because as you know, the agencies are built on people. There's very limited IP. There's not a huge amount of assets. It's just teams of creative people that love doing their work. And so if you start to interfere with that, the result is that the output of work will drop, motivations will be reduced, and they're working for small independent agencies because they like that environment. And so we purposely don't want to bring them into a big corporate environment where that may not align with the employer's interests. So yeah, it's a really difficult one to manage, and especially at our size because agency headcount is anywhere between kind of 15 and 50. So these are sort of small, independent. They've not broken that kind of 75 people barrier where things start to change and decisions start to evolve. So they're happy to stay at that level, and that's what they enjoy. So yeah, that's how we approach it.
Nice. Interesting. I mean, you're absolutely right. It's the people which make small, which they are, small entities like you're talking about,
Mm.
special and successful. So that's really important. And me walking in knowing that is fantastic. So I'm sure they're very successful when they kind of come into your fold,
Yeah.
knowing that that's happening. So let's move into another area that we're really interested in, and that is AI. And I think it's sad, but I don't know. It's interesting that nearly every episode that we have these days, we have to talk about AI in some capacity. I'm interested in your perspective on AI's impact on what are small agencies that you're backing and getting involved with, and what are you seeing on that front and the impact
Yeah.
that AI is having, and what do you see in the future?
Yeah, so it's a really hot topic, as you say, and we see varying levels of adoption across the group. So some entities are more advanced than others. We have a group-wide working group for AI where we bring different initiatives to the leaders within those groups of the things that we could do. I'd say there's a lot of experimentation where um, I think best practice is that experiment, like teams are enabled to make that experimentation. They're empowered to go and create things, and it may not be the best tool or resource that they create, but they're starting to think about how do they become more efficient. Our ethos is that it shouldn't replace people, that it should just increase output. And we think that the judgment layer is critical, as we know, like, having that layer of judgment. And, creative people in agencies are naturally, very independent thinkers. And I think the best way to use AI is to kind of streamline things where like maybe 70% of the work could be automated in some way, but that top layer has to remain people focused and not go completely off on a tangent. So none of our agencies have reduced headcount for AI. They're all experimenting with it. We've brought in external consultants to give us some advice on what we should prioritize. One of our board members is a leading figure in that space. So I'd say we're still trying to figure it out ourselves, in summary.
Yeah.
But we do recognise the opportunity, and we don't want to get left behind because it is moving at an incredible rate. And then some things we're doing at the group level that we're trying to develop that will bring other value add as well, not
Sure.
just in terms of efficiencies. So yeah, work in progress, I would say.
Yeah.
But
Would you
all of
say would
yeah.
you say that the agencies that you're dealing with are really eager to adopt it, or are some reticent to do that? Is it a little bit of both? What's their attitude about it?
Yeah, it's quite mixed, to be honest, and I think it comes from the top down. If the leaders are naturally AI native and very innovative, then that kind of is absorbed by the teams and it fosters that culture. Um, but these are established businesses. Some of the founders are later in their careers, where maybe they're a little bit more stuck in their ways, whereas other agencies are slightly earlier in their careers. So that does vary, and it varies by team size, because I think with the larger teams, it feels like it's harder to roll out some kind of AI initiative because founders are worried about the implications of that if it's not properly implemented. Whereas with smaller teams, they can kind of test and learn. Give the sales team a project to work on with AI versus like putting it across the entire business. So definitely mixed, and we'd like to try and align that more closely if we could. But it's a step by step mission on our side.
I'm curious in the agencies in your fold that are embracing AI perhaps more. Um,
Yeah.
how how have they been? What have you seen that has impacted their success aside from, leader adoption? What other elements are present? Whether it be on the communication side, training side, what are you seeing that's helping them become more successful?
Yeah, I think one of our agencies is a market research and insights agency, and they've had to be quite forward thinking on this because the risk in their space is that people see uh, market research and insights as something that will be commoditized to AI. So what they've been able to do is actually bring some back end systems in place that drive some efficiency, but also make it very clear that there's a human level above that is verifying the inputs and outputs. I've not got into the detail of what that actually looks like, but I know that like 18 months, 2 years ago, they made an investment in a kind of closed environment. So instead of obviously using open AI tools, they've actually got their own kind of server and set up in the office, which is a closed environment, which gives more trust to their clients that if they are experimenting with AI, it's secure. So I think they've thought about the governance. They've thought about how do we maintain our positioning in the market and get ahead of that potential risk. And so that's probably one example that comes to mind where they've really thought it through and put the right process in place rather than just running and testing something.
Yeah, great
Yeah,
example. Love
yeah,
that.
yeah,
All of the forethought and recognizing the implications on potential commoditization and doing that with government governance in place. That's
yeah,
a great example. All the things that you want to see for sure. Very
yeah.
good. Thank you. Okay. So I've also heard that you were creating something called Inflectiv Intelligence. Rob, is that true? Did we hear about that? Is that something really exciting that James is going to tell us about?
Mhm.
I think it is true.
So,
So that will
so,
launch this summer. Is that right? Is that the
yeah,
timing that you're talking about?
yeah, yeah.
Hey, tell us, what is it and how does
So,
it benefit your clients and your organizations you work with and their clients?
yeah. Yeah, so firstly, I can't take any credit for it, just to be clear.
Okay.
So I'm no way smart enough to build this, but our CFO is, and he built this through necessity. So through group level financial reporting, um, uh, we recognize that traditional tools that connect into, say, Zero and Sage aren't actually delivering accurate data, and that can get
Huh.
quite a big problem when you're looking at consolidated accounts. And so he started to recognize the gap, despite there being some quite advanced tools in the market. And obviously, with Claude and all these other resources, started to think, how could I create a version of that tool? And that just became a monster project where it now brings in all financial and non-financial data into an app, online application that um, gives does two things. So for founders, it's absolute clarity on financial reporting to make decisions on the growth of the agency, which I think a lot of small agencies have never had that data. They've got an accountant, they've got a bookkeeper, maybe they've had some CFO in the past, but they're not really looking forward. They're typically looking historically at, like, okay, what have we done the last 6 months? What have we done last week? Whereas this starts to show, okay, if we want to go from A to B in the next 6 months, these are the 5 things we need to do, and this is how we're going to roll that out on a week by week basis. So yeah, we feel it's been built through necessity. We feel it solves a problem, not just for us, but for a lot of independent agencies and also CFOs. So we've had a lot of interest from fractional CFOs and full-time CFOs who are working in other businesses, non-agency related, that have been reaching out saying, when can we take a closer look at this? Because he's been sharing his journey online throughout building this, so he's
Yep.
built quite a following on that. So yes, it's called Inflectiv Intelligence. We're going to open a waiting list 1st of August, and we're excited to get it out into the ether. Uh, and yeah, we think it's a real value add, because in this market right now, I think a lot of businesses are struggling. It's not an easy market, and so if you can get a bit more clarity and certainty through how you're going to run your business, then that can only be a net positive. So that's how we
Yeah.
see it.
What do you think that's going
Okay.
to do to enhance your business? To be able to
Our
offer this whole
business,
new thing, and this, I mean,
yeah,
that's really, it seems really groundbreaking.
yeah. I mean, it's a recurring revenue product, which is naturally beneficial to us, because right now we're focused on a much bigger strategic play, and so having an actual operating entity, which not just combines the app but centralized finance. We've got my partner and other individuals that work with our agencies in other areas. That becomes our kind of operating entity for this group and for future groups. So yeah, it's impactful for us in terms of yeah, an evolution of what we set out to do, I suppose, and different ways that we can support founder-led businesses. So yeah, it's exciting period, and we see a huge addressable market for that product.
I'm
But
sure.
the thing with with AI, as you've seen, is there's so many new things coming to market right now. I think there's a short window of time where we probably need to go quite big with driving adoption, before there's other tools that come out into the market.
Right. And then, of course, the advancements that you're going to have to make to keep up with other competing
Yeah,
tools. Yeah. Well, that's a whole other thing
yeah,
I'm really curious about. So, give us some more detail when it comes to, because you said this isn't looking back historical data; it's projecting how to go,
yeah.
from A to B.
Mhm.
I don't think a lot of people listening right now will understand how financial data can help you see that.
Yeah.
Can you explain that further, please?
Yeah, so say the business is doing 1 million in EBITDA. and next
Sure.
year they want to do 2 million.
Yeah.
It's going to pull in and look at what metrics got them to 1 million and what the variables were to achieve that. So there'll be pipeline, there'll be sales, there'll be headcount, there'll be costs, all of the metrics that are behind that business in terms of revenue and profit. And it'll start to look at different scenarios and say, okay, well, we could either double sales, but if we doubled sales, we're going to need 5 more people. We're going to have these additional costs. We're going to have, so you start to build this scenario of like, we can have organic growth, we can grow through acquisition, we can grow through cross sales, we can grow through upsells, we can grow through account expansion. And I think
Hmm.
agencies probably have a similar approach, like on a top line basis of how they're going to get to their goals, but they don't have the real accuracy behind the data to follow through on that plan. And I think the most important thing is to, like, especially because we're looking to grow through acquisition as well, what we clearly see through the data is that the organic growth path is often the longest and hardest, whereas the
Yeah.
acquisition path is the quickest and least risky. So it actually becomes quite black and white for us that yes, we want to grow organically, but if we can help those agencies acquire additional revenue along the way, then doubling profit in a year becomes much easier that way. So it's almost a bit of
Yeah.
a validation of what's possible. Um, uh, and you can put different variances in there and different assumptions. And because it's all so intuitive, it just makes it a lot easier than trying to build some huge spreadsheet and try and manipulate data in that manner. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, that makes all the sense in the world. So, and the inflective intelligence is, you said that's kind of it's a standalone, if you will. Is that how you described it? And
Yeah,
product. So therefore, you don't have to be in Inflective Group. You just have to get on your waiting list to be able to take
exactly.
advantage of what Inflective Intelligence could do for you. Are you
Exactly.
comfortable talking about how you'll be pricing that and how you'll be, the
I
timeline of the
don't.
rollout? Yeah,
Yeah, I don't want to share pricing just now because that
sure.
may change before we go live. We've got I think there's over 50 kind of test people that are using the app right now
Mm.
to kind of feedback any bugs and things before we actually go live. And we want to stage the rollout so that like we can properly service that demand, assuming we get it. Because I think,
Yeah.
having been in SaaS businesses myself, like it's not just the product, it's how much support you're going to get if you need the adoption implementation. So that's why we're doing a bit of a staged rollout. I would say it's going to be very affordable. Like this
Mm.
isn't going to be an enterprise level pricing. It's going to be something that any small business can afford. And it'll probably be a displacement cost. Like they may already have some tool that they're using, that it will be a displacement onto our product, hopefully. Um, so very affordable, but I can't confirm the exact prices and metrics
Sure.
because that might change when we go live.
But that's a good description, I think, that can help people say, well, should I bother looking into this or not? So good enough.
Yeah,
And the 50 that you mentioned who are
yeah,
testing right now,
yeah.
where are those organizations located? Are they concentrated anywhere? Or are they all over the world?
So, so most are in the UK, I believe.
Okay,
Uh, but I'm not in the detail enough to confirm. But I think
sure.
most are in the UK. But it's not going to be just a UK product. Obviously, we definitely want to be
Yeah.
global with our intent. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a member of an organization in Chicago that
Mm.
is all small agency owners. And
Okay.
there's probably about 45, 50 members of this
Right.
group that meets pretty regularly, at least monthly and in person. And then there's other kind of opportunities when we get together. And the issue that you're describing in the last 2 years has been on the agenda 4 times.
Oh
So
wow.
with different speakers, just kind of coming in to say,
Yeah.
here's how you can manage that, whatever, or we share, here's how I do it, here's how our company does it, or their company does it, etc. So it is very much a hot topic, and so you're striking a nerve for sure. And
That's really
I,
interesting.
yeah, I'll be interested to dig into this some more and maybe
Yeah, we
take it
could.
to one of our group meetings. Yeah,
Yeah, we'll
talk
give
more
you
about it.
a demo. Yeah, and then you can have a look and we can get your feedback. It'd be great to get your
Yeah,
input on it before we
yeah.
go live as well. Yeah. That
Yeah,
would be really
that would
good.
be interesting because, it's
Yeah,
obviously all US based in Chicago. And
yeah,
almost all of them are looking to grow and certainly exit in the next 10 years. So
yeah.
yeah, it's a very active, very robust group of successful agency owners. So yeah, I'm happy to assist and make the intro. So more to come
Fantastic.
on that. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Okay. So now we're at the part where we get to ask you, what else would you like to tell our listeners, particularly what wisdom, from your very successful career? This is the time where I say, hey, tell our listeners good
Look,
stuff that they can act on and, learn from your
yeah,
experience.
yeah. I mean, I think if I was talking to your founder audience, and also just the leaders within those businesses, I would say the market right now is primed for acquisitive growth. I think, it doesn't really matter what industry you're in. I think there's a level of fatigue within founders where if you've got a synergistic business and you can engage with those founders authentically and have an open conversation, I think they'd be surprised how many M&A opportunities there are out there. And uh, it can be a much quicker path for growth than just grinding the organic route. And that's what I did for a lot of my career, and that's really what led me into this path. Was that it's just hard, right? It's just hard to continue to grow year on year, and but it all starts with having those conversations. If you're not intentionally looking for it, like if you're a founder or a leader within a business, you're not putting it out there that you are looking to acquire or bolt on another business into yours, you're not going to get the inquiries, you're not going to have the conversations. So even though founders may have thought about it, I'd say be a bit more vocal with your intent, and you'd be surprised what may come from that. And don't get bogged down in the detail. A lot of founders may think, well, we've not got the capital or we've not got the experience, but you can bring in the right advisors, you can put the team around you to get that done. But it all starts with finding the opportunity. That's probably what I would say on that front, which would hopefully be helpful for some of your audience to think about
Yeah.
differently.
Yeah, it's excellent. And again, from that group that I mentioned, this topic of I'm tired. It's
Yeah,
hard.
yeah,
It's why is it so much harder now? We thought it would be easier in some ways,
yeah,
Many of us have run our firms for 25 years, and it's
yeah.
and it's just feeling like, wow, why is this still so hard?
Yeah.
And so I'll ask you the question. So that's great advice and thank you. But I'll ask you the question. It's not just founder fatigue, like because we've been doing it a long time or we're older. What do you think is contributing to that feeling that just it does seem like something that emerged in the last 5 years, much more
Yeah.
so.
So
I
I think,
don't know if you agree.
I think, I mean, the AI revolution is the fastest adoption of technology we've ever seen. Unarguably, that is causing disruption. I think in the UK, especially, we've got some macro headwinds around political policy, taxes. Business has never been taxed any more than they have like right now in the UK. It's just really difficult for businesses to make money. And even in the US, there's political kind of divide maybe in terms of I don't understand deeply the structures over there, but um, and inflation, right? Inflation has been rampant for the past 5 years. You know, Employees are demanding more salary, but margins haven't increased, and you've got customers saying, well, we can't swallow those additional costs. They're asking for savings. They're saying, well, give us a saving. You can use AI, can't you? And the founders are saying, well, we're having to pay people more now, actually, and we can't. So you're kind of stuck in the middle where actually like value-based selling and training people how to overcome objections, I think is critical because it's a positioning thing and it's a sales problem ultimately. And if you've got people that aren't trained to overcome objections, you're just going to get run over by customers. Quite frankly, they're just going to put so much pressure on you, and that gets feeds back to the founder of like it's really tough to do business out there. And but it is, but you can overcome it with the right approach. So yeah, it's a perfect storm, and I speak to founders all the time who maybe nearly sold a business a year ago, and then they've had like five massive horrendous things happen to the business, and now they're like on the verge of going out of business, and things can change so quickly. It's quite frightening, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm positive. I think it's there for the taking if fans have the right resilience and attitude.
Yeah, that's great. Very
Yeah.
encouraging. I like your
Mhm.
attitude. And honestly, what you just described is the use case for why you exist, Inflective Group, and partially Inflective Intelligence. So um,
Yeah.
there's a crucial need for what you're doing for certain types of companies in the marketing professional services arena. And you're here at the right time. So that's fantastic. How
Thank you.
can people uh, kind of learn more from you? What's the best way? Is it to follow you on LinkedIn? Is there a newsletter? What would you say is the best resource?
Yeah, probably LinkedIn. Starting to try to be more active on LinkedIn. If anybody wants to reach out with some specific request or that's relevant to us, I'm always happy to take an email and see if I can help. And we don't have a newsletter yet, but my partner's going to bring one out quite soon. So following our company page, Inflective Group or Inflective Intelligence, we're going to start pushing out some more data there for people to follow. So that's probably the best channels. And yeah, email is just james@inflectivegroup.com.
Fantastic. Okay, we will
Mm,
include all of that in our show
mm,
notes.
mm,
And I hope everybody will in the target audience will
mm,
take some action
mm.
and learn more from you. You have
All
a
right.
lot of great insights. So thank you, James Rose, CEO of Inflective Group. We're very grateful for you joining us today as our guest on Can You Hear Me?
Absolutely.
Pleasure.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
James. You had wonderful wisdom. And that's going to do it for another edition of Can You Hear Me? I'm Rob Johnson. If you'd like to comment on the podcast or suggest a topic, please look for the Can You Hear Me podcast or check out our newsletter. Both are on the LinkedIn page. And please take a look at our website, canyouhearmepod.beam.ly. We will leave that address and all relevant information in our show notes as well.
Thank you, Rob, and I'm
Thank you
Eileen
both.
Rochford. If you liked what you heard today on Can You Hear Me, please consider giving our show a positive review wherever you get your podcasts, like Apple or Spotify or wherever you happen to grab them from. Please leave us a positive review because your reviews help future listeners find us, and then we can all learn together. So thanks for being here today. We appreciate your listenership, and we appreciate you, James, being our guest. Until next time, thanks very much.
Thank you.